Today we are going to discuss an idea. One that, if implemented, could perhaps bring about one of the most disturbing threats in the entire Fnaf series, and it involves Henry. In case you don't know who Henry is, since he is a very important character but is never mentioned until the ending of Pizzeria Simulator actually, I just looked. And his name is only partially teased in one of the secret endings. He is the former business partner to William Afton. While very little is known about their earlier life, Henry and William were implied to have been friends before opening up Fredbear's family diner together. Then William murdered his daughter Charlie, who is not named in the games either, and is not shown before this mini-game. And eventually the diner closed. William then began his murder spree and took many victims. Very little is known about Henry, because he was never even alluded to until this game, save for in the books that came out near the same time. And yes, that means you would have needed to have read the books to have any significant reaction to the ending, but I digress. What we do know is that from the game's standpoint, he up and disappeared for years. Seemingly aware of Afton's crimes, his only known attempt of stopping William was in Pizzeria Simulator, as it was never confirmed who set up the Fazbear fright trap. It may have been him, Michael, or both. If there is one big problem with Henry, it is that we don't know enough about him to be fully invested. What we do know is that Henry intends to erase the scars of his past and stop the continued murder spree by Afton in one fell swoop. By bringing all the remaining pieces together in one place and burning them. Well, most of the pieces. Freeing all the souls at once. Finally giving them all the rest that he desires. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Not only does he not destroy William and allows him to continue life in another, more versatile form, but he kills off the only people who were actively trying to stop him. Two people who had been trying a lot harder than he had, mind you. Though we can assume Henry's intentions were good, if short-sighted. He should have at least got rid of the body. Security breach reveals this to us. It shows us that it was not only all in vain, but a complete waste of time. None of this mattered. Henry appeared for one game, gave a speech, and then gave Afton a ticket to a Wi-Fi connection. The remains of the trap pizzeria still exist under the Pizzaplex. Afton has survived the fire, but he is not the only one. Molten Freddy came back. Or actually, it is not too clear if he did, is it? Yes, it has Funtime Freddy's head, but not the mask Molten Freddy had. It looks somewhat like an expanded MF, but it is voiceless, deprived of personality. A common theory I hear is that this is because all of the animatronics inside are fighting for control. And this makes them mute and act like a single vessel regardless. I do not subscribe to this theory. I mean, I think they may go this angle now that it's been widely accepted, but I believe that the current state of the blob wasn't how it was intended to be. I believe that it might have looked more like the Princess Quest blob, or that it might have been made of the glam rocks. I think time constraints might have led to the blob being voiceless and largely inactive, only appearing for 2 minutes at the end of the game. As I know there was a second half or stage of the last fight that was cut. And if you don't believe me, also know that there was a slew of burn trap lines and even animations that were not implemented because of the short production. To get back on track, my point is that this big finale of FFPS culminated in all of the good characters being killed off and William Afton being fine. Security breach pretty much made FFPS pointless. It also made Henry's sacrifice pointless. But I believe there is a way that security breach could have done this that would have made FFPS and the ending to it into something disturbing, horrifying. And could have opened the doorway to a villain unlike any we expected. I think that the blob should have been Henry. Imagine this scenario, Gregory in the office segment. You hear Henry's tape playing from FFPS, replaying the iconic speech he gave when everyone burned. It feels like a neat callback. Until it starts to become more off, distorted. Henry is adding in things he didn't say then, he seems confused. And then he calls into the office for Charlie and a tentacle comes through. It was never a recording, it is the blob stuck in a loop of its own memories, searching restlessly for his daughter Anu, because he thinks you are her. In the end, he still kills Afton, but there is no satisfaction, because now we realize the true repercussions of Henry's decisions. Henry has become an amalgamation of his own mistakes and guilt. He has literally been consumed by it, to the point where he can no longer distinguish who he is. He is perhaps one soul guiding many, or perhaps just a physical manifestation of the trauma from Freddy's, led by the one who created it. He is being weighed down by the bodies of those who lost their lives. No longer is Henry's sacrifice in vain. It is instead just a horrific mistake. Perhaps a punishment for not being absolutely certain to stop William, or maybe just the weight of his guilt holding him back. He is tragic, but he cannot control himself, and he is something much worse than William's newest embodiment. There are other possibilities to this decision. If Afton is finally written off, Vanny might fully take his place. Maybe still infected by something, or maybe so brainwashed and traumatized that she must continue, or maybe she just wants to, and that would give us not only more time with her, but two completely separate villains. One who can appear frequently and is a moderate threat, and one rarer one who is extremely dangerous. Even if Afton sticks around, the addition of another significant villain would shake up the formula. Especially since Afton tends to predate on the weak and vulnerable. Henry could be a more universal threat. Plus, in this scenario, Vanny could be freed and possibly become a playable character again. And since William got to have all of his kids come back and do stuff, except for the one the franchise forgot, why not have Henry's? While the book's take on canon is questionable, there's no reason to believe that Henry doesn't have a son named Sammy. He could make an appearance. Why not? But I think out of all of this, the most important thing would be that horror element. To become a worse monster than the one you were trying to stop. To entirely lose your sanity. And the parallels to how Henry's grief consumed him, and now having it actually consume him. You want him to be helped, but you know it's too late to help him. He's beyond that. I just think it would be a neat way to have all of these story threads that are sticking out tie in a slightly more satisfying way. Full disclosure, as I said in past videos, I did not like the ending to Pizzeria Simulator. I found the info dump nature and the rather random tie-in with the books, requiring someone to have read them to have any real understanding of the ending, extremely unsatisfying. I also found that the fact it was pretty much a reboot of FNAF 3's ending to make it feel uninspired. This was not how I wanted FNAF to end. Not in a whimper, but in a lecture by a character who I barely knew. That being said, while I didn't like Pizzeria Simulator's ending, I do acknowledge that it was at least a fitting enough ending. And I especially recognize that a lot of people resonated with that ending. So, security breaches retcon of that doesn't make me feel validated in any way. If anything, it almost makes me retroactively appreciate PS's ending. My biggest problem with the ending was, well, the info dump, but it didn't help that the info dump was unloaded by a non-character. This decision, this choice to make Henry become the next villain would retroactively make that ending regain its importance, because those words have a new context and meaning. After the point where it is revealed that the blob is Henry. Any time we listen to that monologue, we would have that stomach-dropping context that he is steadfast in a goal that is about to unleash a new kind of monster. Especially in the context that the blob would have that new goal. Find his daughter, find the lost souls, and set them free. Set them free. Under any means possible.